router space Ospf. Here we can give the process ID. So the process ID is 1265535. So in R1 router I will use the process ID as 1. Next, the direct connector network for R1 router is 200 dot network 200 dot 200.200.0. So in OSPF we can use the wildcard mask. So the wildcard mask is inverse of subnet mask 0.0.0.255. Next we can mention the area. This is comes under the area 0. So here we can use area space 0. Next I will mention the router ID as a statically. So router hyphen ID. So R1 router ID I will assign as 1.1.1.1. Do right to save this configuration into NVRAM. Okay, now we can configure the Ospf routing protocol into R2 router. So we can go to the R2 router. So in the global mode we can use router space Ospf. Here I will use the process ID as 2. But in EAGRP we can use the autonomous system number is same for all the router. But in Ospf we can use uniquely because this is an process ID. So process ID we cannot be same on all the router. It should be unique. Enter. Next we can use the direct connector network for R2 router. So network space 200.200.200.0. So the wildcard mask is 0.0.0.255. So this network comes under the area 0. So here we can give area space 0. Next direct connector network is 189.200.1.0. So this comes under the area 10. So we can configure here network space 189.200.1.0. So the wildcard mask is 0.0.0.255. area 10. Do right. We can save this configuration into NVRAM. Next we can configure the R3 router. So we can go to the before that we can assign the router ID to R2 router. I forgot to assign the router ID. So in Ospf we can concentrate on one thing. So before configuring Ospf routing protocol we can configure the router ID, otherwise it will automatically choose the router ID. So if it is choose automatically means once we can assign manually means it will clear the Ospf process, then only it will reset that router ID. Here we can see in R2 router it will assign the router ID automatically. We can check do show IP protocols. Here we can see router ID can be chosen automatically 200.200.200.2. So the direct connector interface is do show IP interface brief. Here we can see two physical interface. So in this two physical interface the 200.200.200.2 is an highest IP address. So that's why only it will choose an as 200.200.200.2. Now we can assign the IP address as manually router ID 2.2.2.2. So once I will assign the IP address it will display the message clear IP Ospf process, otherwise we can reload the router. So I will clear the IP Ospf process. Yes, so the neighbor relationship can be goes down and again it will forms the neighbor relationship. It will take few seconds to form a neighbor relationship. We can save this configuration. Do right. Okay, now we can go to the R3 router to configure Ospf routing protocol. So in the global mode we can give router space ospf. Next we can give process ID. Here I will use the process ID as 3. Next the direct connected network for R3 is, so before giving the direct connected network I will mention the router ID as statically. So router hyphen ID. So in R3 router I will use the router ID as 3.3.3. Next the direct connected network is 200.200.200.0. So that wildcard mask is 0.0.0.255. So area is 0. Next network in R3 router, next direct connected network is 172.15.100.0. So this network comes under the area 20. Okay, so the net area is 172.15.100.0. So the wildcard mask is 0.0.0.255. So this network comes under the area 20 space 20. Do right. We can save this configuration into NVRAM. Okay, now we can configure the R4 router. So we can go to the R4 router. So in the global mode we can use router space ospf. Here I will use the process ID as 4. Next I will assign the router ID statically. So router hyphen ID. So the router ID is 4.4.4. Next the direct connected network for R4 router is network 200.200.200.0. So the wildcard mask is 0.0.0.255.